Hey, what's up? Welcome back. In this video, I'm going to reveal the easiest way to set your prices for your car detailing business, and also the 3 biggest mistakes that new car detailers make when it comes to setting prices. Now, surely setting prices is just super easy, right? You just choose a price that you want for your service, you offer it out, customers pay you money. Well, kinda. I mean, there's a little bit of groundwork that you need to do to make sure you are setting your prices correctly. What's actually more important than your prices is how you pitch them to your customers. So stay around to the very end of this video and I'll call an actual lead and try to book them into my calendar, and you'll see whether or not I fail. Okay, so mistake number 1 is just copying some random price that you see on social media, or not even copying a price at all and just coming up with some random price that you just have no reference to. The reason this is not good is because you don't understand the fundamentals of where you got your price from, okay? You just kind of grabbed it out of thin air and hoped for the best, when in reality there is a market rate for car detailing services and the service that you want to offer. And that random guy that you follow on Instagram, well, he might be in a completely new market to you, or he might have just picked his prices out of thin air as well, and you're basically the blind leading the blind. There is definitely a specific way to set prices, but like I said, it's not rocket science. I'm going to walk you through it, make it as easy as possible. All right, so mistake number 2 is people think cheaper prices will attract more customers, when all that does is attract cheaper customers. And it could also be like a limiting belief where it's like, oh, if you wouldn't pay that much for that service, then, other customers wouldn't pay that much for that service. But the thing is, you need to remember is like, you're not setting prices for yourself, you're setting prices for customers, and those customers have money and they want to spend that money with you. So cheap prices attract cheap quality clients, and also, your limiting belief around how much money people has could also be hindering your ability to charge higher prices and your confidence with higher prices. Okay, mistake number 3 is just having too many services. Honestly, I've made all of these mistakes. When I first started out, I was the one who just randomized my prices and there was no sort of structure to them, and I kind of plucked them out of thin air hoping for the best, right? I was the guy who undercharged and attracted those cheap quality jobs. I remember this one time I was working on this job and I'd already discounted this customer like 50% or something, so it was down from like $150. I was now doing this full detail for like $75, and it was taking me 3-4 hours, and then the customer came out and then they started nitpicking every little thing that I'd missed, a speck of sand here, a little bit of hair there. It was just ridiculous, and ended up getting a negative review from that particular customer, even though I'd gave them a discount. I realized from that moment forward, like, I don't want these cheap customers anymore. And I've been the guy offering way too many services. This is the 3rd mistake that most people do, is like, you offer so many different services thinking, oh, if you have more for people to choose from, you're more likely to get more people coming in because there's different offers that cater to different people. But all that does is just confuse or dilute your core offer. So those are the 3 most common mistakes that I see when it comes to setting prices, okay? So now let's actually get into how to set the right prices, avoid these mistakes completely, and set yourself up for success moving forward in your business. So now I'm going to break this into sort of 5 different steps for setting your prices, and then I'm going to actually put it into action and, try and call out this customer and book them in, okay? Step number 1 is doing some market research. Really important that you do market research within your local area, okay? So what I want you to do is write down a list of the top 10 competitors in your area, and then what they charge for each of those 3 or 4 or 5 services that they offer. Now you can go on their website, and find prices, which, if they've got their prices on their website, they're already doing a pretty average job. But you can go on their website, you can sometimes find their prices, and in most cases, you're not going to find their pricing anywhere, right? So you're going to actually have to call up and act like a customer to find out what their prices are for a certain vehicle, for your car maybe, right? Now, this is a very important part of figuring out what your prices are. Now, obviously, the easiest way to find out what your prices are is to just like look at what the top 10 competitors of your area are charging and then come up with an average, right? So all right, these are the top 10, maybe the bottom of the top 10 are charging $250 for a full detail. the top of those, the highest price of that top 10 are charging maybe $400 for a full detail. Okay, so you're like, okay, you've got a good range now. The average would be around that $300 mark. Okay, so this isn't about copying your competitors' pricing. It's about understanding what the market rate is for particular car detailing services in your area. Those top 10 car detailers have probably been around for a while. Okay, so they've established a firm price in the market. They know what the customers are willing to pay. So step 2 in figuring out how to price your services is to understand what your costs are. Okay, so you need to work out how much it actually costs you, let's say, to do a full detail. So there's not much in product costs. Maybe you might spend $10, $15 in product costs to do a full detail. It's not very much at all. Okay, maybe you spend $10 on fuel. So let's just call it like $20 in costs to actually, complete the job. Okay, and then maybe you want to charge yourself out at maybe $60 or $70 or $80 per hour. So that means you would then plus with the costs and then how long it actually takes you to complete the job. So for example, if it takes you 4 hours to complete a full detail, you know that it costs you $20 in costs, fuel, and products, and you want to charge yourself out at, let's say, $60 to begin with, right? So that means, 4 hours times 6 is going to be $240, right? And then plus that $20 cost of equipment is now $260. Okay, so you need to charge a minimum of $260 for that full detail, so you're actually breaking even. And if you want to put some profit on top of that, maybe you want to add a little bit of profit, so charge yourself out at like $300 for that service. You're now making $40 profit for the business after you've paid yourself, that $60 an hour plus costs of actually completing the job. You understand your costs is really important. The biggest expense in car detailing is our time actually detailing the vehicle, so you don't have to charge yourself out at, let's say, $60 an hour, but I tried to aim for an hourly rate of like $60 to $100 per hour if I'm going to go and detail a vehicle. Right, now step 3 is, it's kind of like common sense. If we already know that charging, cheap prices is going to attract cheap customers and charging expensive prices is going to attract, higher quality customers, then let's just price our services in the upper range of the market. So you've now got your 10 competitors, should be all laid out on a list. You know what the average is for a full detail, a ceramic coating, paint correction service, right? You can now go ahead and place your service somewhere, or your price for your service somewhere in that list. I recommend in the upper range of that price list, right? So if you've got $250, like I said, for a full detail is at the bottom, and you've got $400 for a full detail is at the top, I'd be pricing my service anywhere from $350 to $400 for a full detail in that upper range of the market. And same goes for all services, price them in the upper range of the market. It's already proven to be successful. Customers are willing to pay those prices. These businesses have probably been around for a long time. Okay, so it's not like you're going to be too expensive. You're just coming in at a very good position, right? You're not coming in at the bottom and charging these cheap prices. It doesn't matter how much more experienced they are. Most of these bigger businesses that are already established, they hire new staff members to go out and complete the details anyway. So it's not like the skill is necessarily any better, right? And even if it was, it just means they're going to be able to get the job done faster than what you would be able to get the job done. So it's just a time thing. It's not necessarily a quality thing, because it just takes longer to get a better quality result if you're starting out. You're still going to aim for that really good quality result. All right, step 4 when it comes to pricing your services is just to keep them really streamlined. Okay, so this is more about how you offer them to begin with. If you're starting out, especially, I just recommend having 1 to 2 core services. And then from there, you can customize or upsell or downsell. Keeping it streamlined, keeping it really simple makes it easier for you and easier for the customer as well. So we have like basically just 2 core services. We have a full detail, right? And then we have a paint correction ceramic coating service. But from there, we can customize each of those, and we can sort of kind of tailor it to what the customer's needs are as well, right? But we have a full detail service from $397, and then we have a paint correction ceramic coating service from $999 or from $1,000. Okay, but let's just say someone is interested in getting a paint correction ceramic coating, but they don't want to spend $1,000. Well, in which case we will downsell to a paint enhancement and maybe a lesser duration ceramic coating, or maybe even a ceramic sealant. So rather than paying $1,000, they may now only pay $650 and get something very similar, but it's kind of a downsell service. We don't push that service on the front end, right? We push those 2 core services, but we have the ability to upsell, which which is really important, and also downsell from each of those services. So for example, we don't push a basic detail onto our customers at all. If they inquire and they're like, hey, I just want to get a full clean, or I want to get the inside done, then I'll say, hey, look, what I recommend is the full interior, full exterior, plus a paint protection. That service is $397. How does that sound? They might go, ooh, a little bit too expensive, wasn't really wanting that much. I could say, well, cool, well, why don't we do this? We'll do an express interior on the we'll do an express detail on the interior, like a mini detail, and a full exterior wash protection. Rather than paying $397, that service is only $250. How does that sound? Okay, so we've downsold. So really important when you're starting out, or even when you're established, you want to keep your service list really streamlined. You don't want to overcomplicate it with too many options, and then you want to guide that lead down towards the most recommended service, and then from there you can now either downsell or upsell to an additional service. Okay, so let's say someone wants to get the full detail at $397. I can now upsell to maybe a 12-month sealant from a 6-month sealant. I can now upsell to a paint enhancement with a longer term protection. Okay, I can now upsell into a paint correction and a ceramic coating, right? So lots of different options. We upsell, we go ahead and downsell, we customize the package for them, but we make it seem like there's only like one or two options to make it really easy. So at the end of the day, the goal is just to make it as streamlined, as simple as possible for both you and the customer. All right, and step 5 is always be reevaluating and adjusting your prices. Your prices don't have to be set in stone. There's something called inflation in this world, which means like governments are just printing money, okay, which means the value of money is actually going down, right? So the dollar is getting weaker, and in turn, what we can buy with money becomes less and less. So that's why prices increase. So we do need to increase our prices so that we can keep up with inflation, because otherwise that same $300 that you charged for a full detail 5 years ago, it's not going to be able to buy you as much 5 years later. Okay, there's going to be a difference. There's a percentage decrease in the actual amount of things you can buy with money over time. So we need to increase our prices as we move forward and as inflation continues, and it's definitely not going to stop, right? And then we also need to increase our prices as demand increases, okay? Because if you're completely booked out, well, that's a good thing, but there's really only two options for you. You need to hire more staff, which is more infrastructure to be able to manage all of the, new jobs that you have, to keep space on your calendar open so you can bring in new customers. Or option 2, you increase your prices so that you make more money without having to basically do anything at all. Okay, so I'm always a big fan of increasing prices. Every 3 to 6 months, you should be reevaluating and looking at your prices, looking at the market. Have things gone up? Let's increase prices by 10%. So always be reevaluating, increasing prices. They don't have to set in stone. And just remember, you're never going to price every single job perfectly. Okay, sometimes you're going to price a service. It's going to be perfect. You get it finished in 2 hours. You make $400, and you're like, damn, I made $200 an hour. Right, and then sometimes you're going to price a service at $400 and it's going to take you 6 hours, and you're like, damn, I'm under the threshold of my hourly wage. So you're never going to get it perfect, but there is an average, there is a trend that seems to happen, okay? Now let's go ahead, call up this customer and see how we go. All right, so I'm just going to basically call this new lead that came through and try to book them into my calendar to get a full detail on the calendar. So they've inquired about a full detail. Let's try book them in.
Hello, Rachel speaking.
Hey, this is Aaron from Auto Clean Premium Detailing. How are you today?
Good. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. I'm good. I saw your quote came through yesterday, and I thought I'd just give you a quick call. You've got a Mini Cooper that you're looking to get ready for sale.
Yes, and so I'm just looking around for some quotes to get it detailed.
Yep.
I want it cleaned inside and out, and I'm just looking. So what's your deal?
Okay, cool. Yeah, no, for sure. We can definitely help you out. How soon were you wanting to get this done? How soon are you looking at selling the car?
Well, just when it's sort of ready. It's not an urgent job.
Yeah.
But in the nearest future would be good.
Yeah, for sure. What made you want to sell? Are you upgrading or just time for a change?
Yeah, just time for a change. It's I'm wanting something a bit bigger.
Yeah.
Because I've got teenage boys and it's, just time for a change really. No dramas with it, but
okay.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yep. So we have an actual service that's dedicated for selling cars. So it's called the pre-sale detail. Now that includes full interior detail, full exterior wash. We detail the engine bay as well. We add a sealant to the paintwork, make it look shiny, and For your size vehicle, that would be valued at $450. How does that sound?
Yeah, that sounds pretty good, to be fair. Sounds pretty good.
Amazing, amazing. Well, we could get that booked in for you next week. Let me just pull up my calendar.
Actually, I might need to delay it a little bit because my car's going to be out of town next week.
The week after?
Yeah, we could do the week after. I presume it takes all day, or how long does it take?
Yeah. So we ideally would like you to leave it with us for the day. We can get them done in like half a day, but ideally if you leave it with us for the day, then that's going to give us enough time to work on it.
What I'm thinking is I don't work Fridays, so Fridays is a good day for me to...
Cool. We've got availability Friday the 10th.
Okay, of October.
That's, 10th of October. Yep.
Yep, okay, so that sounds good. Book it in and we'll do that.
Perfect. All right, book that in now. I'll send you over a confirmation email as well, and that's going to have our address on it. But we're located number 10A Aerodrome Road.
Yes, I know where you are. I do know where you are.
Perfect. All right, thank you. We'll see you on the 10th of October.
See ya.
Cheers. Bye. That's how it's done. Notice how I built a little bit of rapport, asked a few questions before jumping straight into the service and the price, you know. You build a little bit of rapport, it shows that you actually care, shows that you can build a bit more trust there as well. Job closed. We'll see them on the 10th of October. All right, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe. Check out some of my other videos on the channel. And if you are wanting to learn more about how to scale a car detailing business, there's a link below with a free training. Go check that out, and I'll see you in the next one.